Believe in Bigfoot? Dogman? Any cryptid? Are you skeptical?
Curious about the supernatural, conspiracy theories, the unknown? Then come join us as we explore facts, tall tales, and encounters on Creatures and Curiosities.
Hello and welcome to Creatures and Curiosities. I'm David.
And I'm Jake.
And in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about these incredible flying creatures known as Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
They are mostly Native American culture, though there is the cryptid side of it as well. So It's kind of a spiritual thing or a cryptid thing. Depends, what you want to believe. But we're going to kind of go over a little bit of that. So we're going to start off probably with the description of the Thunderbird, as we do in every episode. The Thunderbird is a creature deeply rooted in the mythological beliefs of many Native American tribes. And it's often depicted as just this giant bird with massive wingspan. And it's associated with thunder, lightning, and storms. Some people believe that the Thunderbird is really just an unknown bird species or even possibly a surviving Teratorn, which was just a family of great big, huge, extinct giant birds. Accounts vary, but it's consistently described as far exceeding the size of even the largest known living bird. Some accounts suggest wingspans as large as 20 feet or more. Some accounts have been ridiculously large, but most put them in that 14 feet to 20 feet area.
Which is funny you say ridiculously large, because when I see 20 feet, that's exactly what I think of that size. That's insane.
I mean, I can't even imagine a bird with a 20-foot wingspan.
Right.
Now, we do know that there's big birds, right? Condors, etc.
Yeah.
But they don't come anywhere near 20 feet.
And those things are huge when you see them in person.
They're massive birds. I mean, we have golden eagles and bald eagles here in Montana.
Right.
I mean, and a lot of them.
Yeah.
I counted one day just by my house. There were 13 bald eagles in one tree perched there. And it was a majestic sight.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And they're huge. I went out to a landfill not too long ago. And oddly enough, there's like a ton of seagulls out there, and we're not even close to an ocean.
Yeah, that always gets me.
And I've never figured that one out, why that particular bird species is here at our dump. But there were big bald eagles out there too, because, there's a carcass pile out there too when people hunt and take their deer bones and whatnot.
Right, yeah.
Skins, and they throw them out there at the dump, and the birds are out there picking at it.
It's like a buffet.
Yeah. So I'm driving along the dump road, and there's this huge bald eagle, and he's just sitting there on the side of the road. So I pulled up next to him, didn't even scare him off. He was almost like challenging me,
and
I took a picture of it. But you don't realize how big that bird is until you're like right by one.
It's like a medium-sized dog.
Yeah.
They're huge.
Guy was huge. You could see the talons were, all I could think of was, my Lord, if that thing flew at me and tried to grab me, it'd probably crush you. I know they have a massive grip strength.
Yeah.
But the length of those talons, if you thought about those things crushing into your skin, puncturing through you and grabbing onto you.
Well, you think about, too, you see those videos of I think it's mostly the golden eagles, when they're hunting for mountain goats.
Oh, yeah, I love those.
They pick them up and just pitch them off the side of the cliff.
Yeah, throw them off to their death and then go down and eat
But
them.
you got to think, even though they're lifting them only a foot or so off the ground, they're still getting them off the ground.
Right.
And that's a big animal just lift up and throw off the side of a building.
Exactly.
Or, off the side of a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you look at the size of an eagle or a golden eagle or some of the big hawks, the red tails and whatnot around here.
Right.
Ravens. I mean, there's some big birds out there.
Yeah.
They don't come anywhere near.
No, these things are over double the size of that.
Is.
Yeah.
So imagine the talons on a Thunderbird.
Right.
Imagine the grip strength of a Thunderbird. I think it's probably far beyond what we can possibly fathom.
Yeah.
But while the wingspan is the most emphasized feature of the Thunderbird. Some accounts also mention that the bird's height, they range from like 4 to 8 feet tall. So imagine the body of a bird being 4 to 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
I mean, now you're almost into bat squatch kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with a 20-foot wingspan on top of it.
Yeah. I know.
It's wild.
Bat squatch, he was like 8 to 10 feet tall with a 40-foot wingspan, right?
Yeah.
So this thing would be very close to something like like bat squatch.
That's horrifying.
It is horrifying. It is described as having dark feathers, sometimes with white markings around the neck. It has a large hooked beak and large claws or talons. And in a few cases, it was described as having no feathers, but leathery skin, kind of like a bat.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously the body of the bat has fur, but the wing itself was like that almost translucent skin.
Yeah.
And there were some that described it as being such. Most of them, though, it's a dark feathered bird, and it looks like a bird. So not bat-like as much as bird-like.
Right.
The Thunderbird is often compared to the size of a small airplane.
Which is, again, it's crazy big.
When we get into some of the sightings, it was mistaken. I didn't put one of the sightings in here, but I'll just briefly state it because it's described as an airplane. There's this guy, he was in Alaska and he was working out. He was like a heavy equipment operator. He sees this thing in the sky and he figures it's an airplane, but it's gliding and it's at a fairly high altitude. And he says, and all of a sudden it kind of banks in and starts coming towards him. And then he notices that the wings are flapping. And so he's like, I thought for sure it was like a Cessna, but the wings don't flap on an airplane.
Right,
so it was obviously a bird. And he said, but then it just kind of soared away and he lost sight of it. I don't know. I guess just thinking about, if you were out there and you saw something like that coming at you, and I don't think it was like close to him.
Right.
But nonetheless, I mean, how long would it take for it to swoop down on you?
Even in my general direction, no matter how far away it is, you'd get freaked out.
And if you saw a bird the size of an airplane, I would think that you'd be thinking about that probably for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You'd never want to go outside again.
Well, you'd have to, lean your head out the door and peek around first. Otherwise, at that point, you're what a house cat is to an eagle.
Exactly.
You're getting snatched.
Yeah, I always worry about that with my little Pomeranian.
Right.
We let him out, and I'm always worried that he's going to end up eagle bait.
Yeah.
Or something, because that is a reality here.
Yeah, big time.
Animals get snatched in Montana all the time by big birds of prey. So I would not want to be the prey of a Thunderbird.
No.
Can you imagine being hauled off into the sky? If you're dropped from a great distance, you're going to drop to your death.
Yeah, you're done for.
If he does hang on to you, you're going to end up in a nest somewhere where they're picking the flesh off of you.
On top of that, it's not like he's got you with his talons around your arm.
Oh, no.
Carrying you nicely. They're probably stuck into your back.
In your back. So you've got, these 5-inch talons through your lungs and you're trying to breathe
labored breathing and
gasping for air as you're off to your death. It's a horrifying thought.
And then he picks you apart and vomits you into his little baby's mouth.
Yeah, right.
As you're watching yourself get eaten by the babies.
Isn't it? It's horrifying.
It's horrible.
Laying there in the nest with these little birds nibbling at you. But, and it reminds me of Jurassic Park.
Right.
Where, they're trying to escape the velociraptors and the T-Rex and whatnot, but they end up walking into an aviary.
Yeah.
And he looks up and he sees the big cage. And then they realize, oh, Lord, they're in a pterodactyl area. And the birds are nipping at him.
Yeah.
And he jumps off the thing and he's got his chute, or it's like a paraglider.
Right.
And he's trying to glide away, but the birds are pecking at it and the wind's going through it and he falls into the water. But then they still go after him.
Yeah.
Splashing in the water and pecking at him and whatnot. And that's kind of what a Thunderbird would be like.
Right. Except you don't have a paragliding thing to get away. You're just stuck in a nest.
Stuck in a nest.
Getting picked apart.
Getting picked apart. It's terrible. All right. So moving into what locations have these things been seen? Well, it's kind of vast. there have been a lot of different reports. On the sightings that we're going to go into, we're keeping it to a few different places. But the common areas for a Thunderbird, number one, Alaska. And there's been several reports, modern day reports, of large bird-like creatures with these massive wingspans that could only be described as a Thunderbird. I don't know. I did not do any research. I don't know if you know. Are there condors in Alaska? I don't know.
Don't believe so, but I couldn't be 100% about that.
Yeah, so I know there's the California condor, right? I mean, we're from California, and I know that there are protected species. I used to live in an area where in the mountain range just south of us, it was actually called Condor or something, Condor Peak or something like that.
Right.
Where there were known to be condors. Now that's a big, big bird, but it's still not going to be in the neighborhood of what's being described when people see these Thunderbirds.
So real quick, I looked it up as you were talking. There are no known condors in Alaska.
Well, there you go. So they have to be Thunderbirds.
Right.
Because there's been multiple sightings of them with multiple witnesses to these massive birds that are being seen in Alaska.
And I've seen condors.
I have too.
Up close as well at like a zoo, because they're, like you said, they're endangered species.
That California Living Museum that was in our hometown there in California.
Right.
They had a huge condor there.
Yeah. And they're huge. Don't get me wrong. They're massive.
It's a big bird.
But there's big difference in a 8-foot tall bird with a 20-foot wingspan than a condor.
Most condors, to my recollection, had between a 6-foot and 10-foot wingspan.
Yeah.
So like an average big condor, had like an 8-foot wingspan, but their body wasn't 8 feet tall.
No.
It's kind of they're still pretty good size, right?
Oh, yeah.
About the size of a dog with huge wings.
Sure.
But it's still not a Thunderbird.
Yeah. It's night and day.
I don't care how you slice it. Another area where there's been multiple reports of Thunderbird sightings was the state of Florida. All over Florida, specifically Tampa Bay area, has probably had the most accountings of Thunderbird activity. The state of Illinois has had several notable sightings. In fact, one of the most famous sightings back in 1977 that we're going to go over. Pennsylvania, a ridiculous amount of sightings in Pennsylvania, almost as though those people are being plagued by Thunderbird.
Right.
And that's kind of specific to the Pennsylvania wilds area. Those sightings date back into the 1800s and are current to almost today. Sightings have also been reported in states such as Arizona, California, Iowa, Missouri, Nevada, New Mexico, North Dakota, and Texas.
Right.
So basically, all over the place.
Yeah. And you could say, if you wanted to be the over-the-top skeptic, the ones in California, they were a condor. It's a misidentification just because it was a large bird. There's definitely people out there that they can't judge distance and size.
Right.
For sure.
100%.
But not everybody who has had these sightings, you could say that about. And like we've said countless times again, and we'll continue to say, I'm almost sick of saying it at this point, but if one person's right out of 1,000, then it's a true statement. It doesn't matter.
Right. And I hate to go back to the Jurassic Park thing because it's just a movie.
But it's a good movie. So
it's a good movie, and I liked it. But you remember the scene where they're in I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 or which particular episode it was of Jurassic Park series, but they're in either the airplane or the helicopter, and as they're flying over the ocean, the pterodactyls have escaped the island and they're flying away from that area.
Right.
And he smirks and smiles like they're going to carry on.
Yeah.
And all I could think of was, and they're going to end up, in a city somewhere where they're picking people off on
left
a daily
and right.
routine.
You can't do anything about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And as they lay eggs and adapt and whatnot, they're going to become a predator on Earth. And I always kind of laughed at how he was smiling, that he was so happy that these things had survived.
Right.
But my point behind that is the reason that they're seen in so many different states is because they can fly.
Right.
They're not bound to like a particular region or something. So, I mean, I could imagine if Pennsylvania had the market on Thunderbirds, they're not probably going to just stay there. Birds are known to migrate.
Yeah.
And why would they not? So as they fly into other regions of the United States and or Canada or any other country, what binds them to a particular area? Nothing.
Nothing at all. Yeah.
And so it makes perfect sense that they would be seen globally. Now, I know we have talked about the massive bats in South America.
Right.
And, Africa, I believe, has that one horrifying looking bat.
Yeah.
That's huge. I would say that these Thunderbirds are capable of being anywhere within the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so
just like every other bird.
Yeah. Trying to keep it down to one specific location would be almost impossible.
Yeah.
Because they can travel wherever they want to. But anyway, let's get into the origin of the Thunderbird. Now, we're going to be talking in terms of mythology.
Right.
Initially here. And then we're going to get into maybe like the cryptid version of it. The Thunderbird is a mythological bird-like spirit in Native American history and culture, and it's considered to be a supernatural being of power and strength, most often associated with the upper world and controlling weather. In a lot of these beliefs, the bird basically is a god in animal form. And that's going to differ amongst different tribal communities throughout like northeastern America, southeastern Canada, the Great Lakes area. These particular tribes that we're going to be talking about, we've talked about in past episodes.
Yep.
Different beliefs that they have and how the spiritual realm works within each of these different tribal areas. So we're not going to get into specific detail because there's too much.
That'd be the entire podcast. Yep.
Too many tribes and what their differences in beliefs are. But we are going to touch on just a couple, just to kind of give a basis for what a Thunderbird was. The Thunderbird itself creates thunder by flapping its wings, and it can fire lightning bolts from its eyes, which it casts at underworld creatures. Often while flapping its wings, water will fall off its back, which they see as creating rain. Tribes used Thunderbirds to explain some of the things that happen naturally, such as storms and other forms of weather. Tribes across North America have varying stories about the Thunderbird. Some view it as a benevolent nature spirit and a protector that sometimes assisted tribal members in their search for food during periods of famine. Yet other tribes view it as this fearsome hunter. Many stories claim that the Thunderbird's favorite prey was the killer whale. So that's a pretty good-sized bird.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to go down and pick off a killer whale out of the ocean.
It's known to be one of the most ferocious predators that we know about.
Right. Yeah. In today's modern world, I think the killer whale is.
Yeah.
Not necessarily pound for pound, because I think the shrew,
which is
tiny little mouse, is one of the most vicious predators on Earth. But a killer whale is definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And so if a Thunderbird enjoyed picking them off out of the water as a meal, it's got to be a pretty good sized bird with a lot of power behind it. Now, other myths from specifically like the Illini tribe, they depict these Thunderbirds as being vengeful hunters, prone to grabbing children in their talons and carrying them away to kill them. So some tribes also believed that the igneous rocks known as thunderstones are actually like the petrified eggs of a Thunderbird. Now, an igneous rock, of course, is just like any kind of rock that was formed by heat.
Mm-hmm.
Igneous meaning to ignite. So things like obsidian and pumice and granite and other things that were formed due to volcanic eruption is an igneous rock. Well, in these tribal communities, they'd find these massive rocks and they felt that they were going to be the offspring of the Thunderbird.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool story.
Oh, yeah.
So getting into a little more specific, the Algonquin mythology, which we've talked about the Algonquin people in many different episodes.
Yep.
There are multiple tribes within the Algonquin-speaking people. But the Thunderbird in their mythology actually controls the upper world, while the underworld is governed by the underwater panther. The underwater panther was actually this like water monster, kind of like the face of a panther, but kind of the body of a snake. And it was had like spines or something down like the dorsal area. It had scales. So it wasn't literally like a cat,
right?
But it was described as a panther. This thing lives in the water, and it is in opposition to a thunderbird. So the underwater panther is actually an opposing yet complementary force to a thunderbird as they're engaged in this eternal conflict. So it's kind of like, for lack of a better term, heaven and hell. So you have the upper world, that this powerful bird governs, and he creates the weather patterns, and he can be a good thing or a bad thing depending upon your particular tribal belief.
Yeah.
So sometimes this guy picked off their children, and sometimes he assisted them in finding food and brought them rain for crops, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's different ways that he's being looked at. But the underwater panther, in some tribal belief, he could be helpful as well. And I didn't really see any specifics on how he was helpful, because most of them felt that he was just a deadly force that needed to be dealt with before they could have safe passage. And he was specific to like Lake Superior. So he would be like this evil entity under the water, kind of like a Hades concept in other mythology.
Yeah.
So he kind of ruled the water, and he would create like water storms and patterns. And, if you're out on the lake in your boat, he'd stir up a whirlwind or a tide or something that would crash your boat, on the rocks and kill everybody on board. And so they knew they had to deal with this guy. Well, the way they would do that is they would look to the Thunderbird to protect them, so that the Thunderbird pick the underwater panther off or put him at bay.
Now they can go fishing.
So that they could, have safe passage in the lake.
Yeah.
Either get across it or go out and do fishing or whatever they needed to do. So that was one. And again, we're not getting into the details. So if anybody says, oh, there's a lot more to that story than that. Yes, there is, but I don't have time to cover everybody's particular belief. That's how the Algonquin people saw the Thunderbird. He controlled the heavens, basically.
Right.
The Ojibwe version, which, they were over at the Great Lakes area and stuff, their version of the myth states that the Thunderbirds were created by the Nanabozo, which was this like little trickster spirit kind of a guy. And they created the Thunderbird to fight the underwater spirits. So much like the Algonquin, the Thunderbird was in opposition to these water spirits. They, however, felt that Thunderbirds also punished humans who broke moral rules. So now you're kind of getting into the same kind of thing as like skinwalkers and the Wampus cat and whatnot.
Exactly.
Was it good? Was it bad? I don't know. Depends on which myth you want to buy into and which tribal lore you had, right? I mean, so Wampus cat sometimes was a defender and a protector of the forest, and other times it was a screaming, jealous feline that couldn't take the fact that it wasn't human anymore. He'd kill you.
Exactly.
This is kind of the same.
Yeah, you don't follow the rules, and the Thunderbird's going to get you.
The Thunderbird's going to take you out. Right. They believed that the Thunderbird lived in all four directions, right? North, east, west, south, etc. And it arrived with other birds in the springtime, but in the fall they migrated south. And that's generally after they took care of the underwater spirits that were wreaking havoc. And the Thunderbirds would put them at bay, make life better for the tribe, and then they would fly south. The Menominee, which was a tribe in the northern Wisconsin area, they tell stories of a great mountain that floats in the western sky. And that is where the Thunderbirds live. They live on this massive floating mountain. They control rain and hail, and they delight in fighting and feats of greatness. So again, pretty much the same basic kind of story where they do have rule over the sky. They can create weather patterns, and they're warriors, basically. They love to fight off evil things. Well, the evil thing in this particular belief was the great horned snake, which is very similar, if not the same thing, as the underwater panther.
Right.
Now, I'm not well versed in Native American folklore, but I do know that the Algonquin people called it the underwater panther and or the great horned snake. The Menominee said, no, it's the great horned snake. Well, the great horned snake is this creature that lives and rules the underworld. It's a water spirit, and it is in direct opposition to the Thunderbird. They're enemies, and in this particular lore, the Menominee believed that the Thunderbirds prevented the great horned snakes from overrunning the earth and devouring all humankind. Now, the Thunderbird, in their belief, is a messenger of the great sun himself. So we could go on and on. There's multiple other tribes, multiple other beliefs, but just to keep things, down to a minimum, because we have a ton of stories.
Yeah, a ton of sightings
to go over. That is a basic rundown on what a Thunderbird is within Native American folklore. Kind of a god of the sky, rules the world from the heavens, is opposed to the underworld or the underwater spirits that were bad or good, depending upon which tribe you're talking about. And he can either be a defender or a predator.
Yeah.
And I think it is kind of dependent upon not just the tribe, but what's happening. If you're not being a good moral human being and you're breaking all the rules, Thunderbird may pick you off.
Yeah, you're done
Take
for.
you up to the nest and tear you apart, feed you to the babies. Or he may help you and defeat your enemies. So it's a very vast difference of opinion amongst the tribes as to what he does or what he is.
Right.
They all believe he's this massive flying spirit, though. So we'll just stick with that. Thunderbird is this great big, huge, pterodactyl-like bird of prey that typically does good things and battles evil. In cryptozoological terms, the Thunderbird is just this massive bird that is a predator, and he's been known to prey on animals and sometimes humans. And so we're just looking at him as a modern day monster.
Yeah.
That's an easier way to look at it.
Yeah.
It might not have spiritual meaning behind it. It might not have a story or a moral to it. But in the easiest of terms, he's just a big flying monster that wreaks havoc on things that it wants to eat, and you just got to hope it isn't you.
I was just thinking about that when you were saying about looking at the eagles and stuff up close and how big their talons are. Imagine how big this thing's talon looks up close.
I don't think you could imagine it.
Yeah.
It's got to be, if you're looking at a 20-foot wingspan, we're looking at eagles that have maybe a 4-foot wingspan, maybe 5 feet stretched all the way across. I don't know. Some get pretty big, but I just know the ones that I've seen personal and close up, those talons are like 3 inches long.
Yeah.
So imagine a bird 4 times that size. His talons are probably somewhere in that 8 to 12 inch.
Yeah, you got a
length.
foot spear. It's a spear, a hooked spear on their hand.
Something of a proportion that we're not even capable of dealing with. And if he locked those talons around your body and those things pierced you, it'd kill you just in flight.
Just by grabbing you.
Just by grabbing you, probably crush your body. And it's a big bird.
Yeah.
Bottom line. So let's move into some notable sightings. Now, some of these don't have a lot of detail, and some of them do have a lot of detail. But we figured we'd probably just go over the majority of some of the, what I would call recent day sightings, right? So you're going to cover one that was back in the 1800s, and there's multiple in the 1800s.
Yeah.
But most of the sightings that we're going to talk about are from the 1940s to present day.
Yeah.
And so as far as I'm concerned, that is modern day sightings.
Yeah. That's not that long ago when you think about it.
It's not. So why don't you jump in on that first major sighting?
So first recorded sighting, and it was on April 26th of 1890. 2 cowboys from Arizona claimed to have killed a giant bird that had a colossal wingspan. The story was originally printed in a local newspaper called the Tombstone Epitaph. And according to the story, they took careful aim with their rifles at the amazing creature and blasted it from the sky. Now you got to think, these guys back then, they don't have TV, they don't have movies like we have, where you can imagine more, I would say.
Right.
You know, when you watch a Godzilla movie, Jurassic Park, you have more of an understanding of what things could, even though it would freak you out to see a bird with, maybe you're a little bit more prepared for it though. Like, that's exactly what I thought it would look like.
Right.
These guys have no idea.
Yeah, this would just come out of the blue to them.
Just a couple guys out running cattle or doing whatever they're doing. A couple cowboys.
Yeah, and here comes a pterodactyl.
And here comes a pterodactyl. And who knows if they even have an idea of what a pterodactyl is, really, at that time.
Yeah, who knows what their educational level was and what books
Exactly.
they've read and all that. Yeah.
So the cowboys and their horses dragged the lifeless monster into town, and it was described as having no feathers, but smooth skin and wings, quote, composed of a thick and nearly transparent membrane, end quote. They said the wings looked like they had belonged to a bat, and the article reported that the creature was 92 feet long and had a wingspan of 160 feet. The creature also had a head and a face that resembled that of an alligator. The description given suggests the animal was more like a pterodactyl or other prehistoric creature, and there was no photo published with the article.
I actually read this article.
Right.
So it's available online and it's in the Library of Congress.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
The fact that they even put that in the Library of Congress is amazing in and of itself. But the paper did not have the ability to even put pictures in it. The newspaper back in that time,
right?
They couldn't do graphics. So it was just text, and that was it.
That's
so when people say, oh, no, there's a picture, I've seen it. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You're recollecting something else or something of more modern day, because in that particular newspaper, they published no pictures. I've seen the article, and there is no picture of this thing.
Which sucks to say, because you want there to be a photo, right?
I want there to be a photo. Of course I do.
Back in the 30s and 40s, the 1930s and 40s, during a El Dorado celebration, there was an old cowboy, and he decided to speak. Now, this celebration is something that they held back in Tombstone. They still hold stuff like this to this day. And he told reporters that he was one of the ranchers that shot at the creature, but that they misled the story so badly. So basically, him and his friend were chasing the creature as it was flying in the air, and their horses were getting a little spooked. Creature ends up circling back, so coming not at them, but coming towards them to fly over and past them. And they were trying to get their horses turned around to follow it, but the horses were too startled, so they couldn't chase the creature, and the creature ends up banking off and getting away.
So they never actually shot it.
And they never shot it down, and they never killed it, and it flew away. So
the original story was just,
according to this guy,
sensationalized,
which it just kind of goes to show you that you can't trust the media even back then.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. You know, we're talking lightly about it, but it ticks me off if that's the case, if that's the real guy.
Yeah.
And they tell this amazing story in the paper, and he comes out and he goes, yeah, no, that's all good and fun, but that's actually not what happened at all. We did see this thing.
Right.
And we did chase it down. It got away from us, but we didn't shoot it down. I'm happy that it was a real sighting, but it angers me that they had to make it out to be something that it technically wasn't.
Exactly.
Because then you're going to get the people who go, well, then it probably didn't happen at all.
Well, it didn't happen. Sure.
Yeah, because if one portion of it. Yep, exactly. Who's to say they're not lying now?
Right.
Then, in 1970, a man named Harry McClure claimed that he knew one of the cowboys involved with the incident, when he was just a boy. The real story, as related by the cowboy to McClure, was that the creature they shot at had a wingspan of 20 to 30 feet. They did not kill the Thunderbird. It flew away, and they returned to town only with their story, which lends more credibility back to that cowboy speaking at the celebration.
Right, who claimed that he was one of the ranchers.
Right.
Yeah.
Which also lends more credibility to the story, I think, because this is more of an accurate depiction of the size of what we know the Thunderbird to be. That 20-foot wingspan,
right, instead of 160 feet.
Which is, that's just crazy.
Right. So that was obviously just an exaggerated story.
Right.
That they came back and couldn't wait to tell everybody what had happened. And but none of that was true.
Now, a photo was supposedly taken of this great creature held up with its wings spread by several townspeople.
Which we've seen.
And many people recall seeing this photograph printed in Fate, National Geographic, or Grit magazine, or in some book about the Old West. But as yet, this photo has not surfaced. The Library of Congress has the issue, April 26, 1890, on file, and it shows no photo. So no matter, like you were saying, you may have thought you saw a photo somewhere, or you've seen something online saying that it was from this, but it's unfortunately, it's not.
Right. So if you go online and you type that in, you're going to see multiple different pictures.
And they're cool looking pictures.
And they're very cool looking pictures. Yeah. But so far, every one of them has been determined to be a fake.
Yeah.
They didn't have the ability to take that picture. Well, I mean, you could take pictures in 1890, but the newspaper couldn't put it in the article.
Right.
And so people that say, no, I saw the picture. You didn't.
Yeah.
You're thinking of something else, or you saw a picture of modern day, like AI or, whatever.
Digitally made photo. Yeah.
Digitally made photo. I did read on, I think it was Reddit, somebody had posted an article about that was actually done in the year 2010 by some British photographer, made this fake photo to basically show or reenact what it could have been.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to fake anything.
It was
a reenactment.
Trying to show
a depiction,
what it was described as being.
Right.
And then other people said, no, because that photo's been around since 1960. And other people said, no, I've seen it in 92. So the great debate goes on. Is there or is there not a picture of a Thunderbird? And everything that I've seen to this point is there is no actual valid confirmed picture of a Thunderbird or anybody that shot one down or anybody posing with one.
If you guys have been listening to us, you know that we want that picture to be real.
Yeah, we want that picture, right.
So we don't say that lightly, that it's not a real picture.
And then there's the picture of the one it's nailed against the side of the barn, and it looks like a big raven or something, and then like you said, it reminds me of, Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah.
What was it, the third one?
One of those. I think it was the third one.
Either the end of 2 or the beginning of 3 or both, where it's nailed in
the barn,
and they
there.
charge like $5 to come in and take a peek at it. And the guy sits there with a shotgun waiting for it to wake up. What was it, every 27 years or something like that? And so all those pictures are fake, and nobody wants to see a real one more than us.
Right.
So, but I'm believing at this point that there is no.
And if you think it might be real, do this. Pull up a photo of some old cowboys, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday. They have them, where a bunch of them are standing or sitting there. Even the most digitally remastered version of those photos, they still look horrible, right? Because they're old photos.
Yeah, the resolution was terrible.
And this photo of these cowboys with this thing looks actually like a pretty decent photo.
Yeah.
It just looks, quote unquote, old-timey.
Right.
It's nowhere near the quality of the capabilities we had back then.
No.
Which just goes to show you that it's not a real picture.
It's not real.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. That sucks, but.
So moving on here. In the early 1940s, writer Robert R. Lyman spotted a Thunderbird sitting on a road near Coudersport, Pennsylvania. It soon took to the sky, spreading its 20-foot wingspan. And that's all we have on that one.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few that are short ones like this, but they're good to put in there because
it just shows that over time they're being seen all over the place.
Moving on, another little quick one. In 1948, on April 10th, in Overland, Illinois, 3 people claimed to have seen a large bird that was the size of a plane flying overhead. although no interaction happened. Later, another sighting occurred in Alton, Illinois. A father and son claimed to have been accosted by a giant bird with a body the size of a Piper Cub airplane.
That's a big bird.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge.
Piper Cub's a small one, but it's Cessna.
And you got to wonder, accosted. I mean, what are we talking here? Because that's all we have from the story. What is it? Swooping down on him, kind of like you would get a false charge from a bear, which is horrifying.
That's my thought on it. Is if you're being accosted by a bird, it's probably swooping at you.
Yeah. That's terrible.
But a bird that size, the size of an airplane, swooping at you, that's not just being accosted. That's
because I've
insane.
Years ago, I had an injured crow in my backyard, so I went out with some gloves and I picked it up and I was trying to put it on the other side of the fence because it was trying to get back towards its nest, and a couple other crows were swooping down on me. And when I say I was scared, I wasn't scared of the crows, but still you're ducking, because you don't want to get pecked by it.
Right.
And that's a little crow. If I smacked at it, it'd probably kill it.
Yeah.
This is a bird with a 20-foot wingspan that even if you smacked at it, it's just going to snatch you, carry you off to be pecked alive.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
No.
And then you have your kid with you who...
Yeah.
You're going to try to protect him, but...
Right, you're trying to protect him, but you're terrified.
You might have to chuck him to the bird.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it kind of reminds me, I don't know, it's obviously going to predate you by a lot, but it's a movie, so you could certainly have seen it. Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds.
Yeah, I have seen it.
Yeah, where they're pecking the woman's eyes out and stuff and smashing through windows. But those were just flocks of normal-sized birds.
Right.
Imagine a big old Thunderbird coming after you.
Even two of them, but one of them alone. But then you have a couple of them.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
Just here in Montana, the magpies, those darn things.
Oh, they're brazen. Yeah.
They're brazen. They attack you all the time.
Yeah. And I hate those things.
I hate them. I've got a nest of them out in my tree. I have a pine tree out here that they're in there. And I went over, I was weed whacking and it's screaming at me from the nest.
Yep.
And then the next thing I know, there's 3 of them out there swooping at me. And this is insane.
You're right. Exactly. So moving on, in 1969, the wife of a Clinton County, Pennsylvania sheriff saw an enormous bird over Little Pine Creek. Now, she said its wingspan appeared to be about as long as the creek was wide, which was about 75 feet.
So maybe she's exaggerating a little bit, or maybe she just found the mother lode of a Thunderbird.
Right. And let's say she is exaggerating. You would assume that she's not exaggerating from 6 feet to 75 feet.
Right.
Let's even say you cut it in half and it's 30 feet, which obviously that's less than half, but 30 feet, that's a Thunderbird.
That's a Thunderbird.
Huge.
Yeah. She clearly saw one.
Right. And then again, another quick one. In 1970, several people saw the gigantic bird, quote, soaring toward Jersey Shore, which is in Pennsylvania. It was dark colored and its wingspread was almost like that of an airplane.
Yeah. So again, these things are massive.
Huge.
And there's a lot of people seeing them. So I think that one of the most terrifying stories about Thunderbirds is that they have occasionally attempted to carry away animals and small children.
Yeah.
Now, this particular story that I'm going to cover appeared in the July 28th, 1977 edition of the Boston Evening Globe. There was this 10-year-old by the name of Marlon Lowe, and his mother, Mrs. Ruth Lowe, claimed that one of 2 large black birds with 8-foot wingspans, so now you're in condor size, right? Tried to carry Marlon off in its claws on Monday evening in Lawndale, Illinois. So Marlon's outside playing. One of these birds suddenly attacks him and picks him up. Now, if you can pick up a 10-year-old kid, that's
some strength.
That's some strength.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lowe said that Marlon was carried about 30 feet before the bird finally dropped him after Marlon was, hitting this bird with his hands.
Right.
There were several eyewitnesses to this particular incident, so they know that it did, in fact, happen. The birds were described as having a white ring around their necks, a 4.5-foot long body, with each wing approximately 4 feet long. It had a 6-inch hooked bill, 3 front claws, 1 back claw, and an extremely large black body. Now, this was reviewed by a lot of people, and many bird experts said that there is no bird native to Illinois that could even remotely attempt to lift a 70-pound child, much less pick him up and carry it 30 feet before dropping him.
Right.
So What was it?
If the experts are saying it
are
doesn't
there
exist.
condors in Illinois?
Yeah.
I don't think there are.
Right.
And so it had to be a Thunderbird.
And not only terrifying for the kid, but how terrifying for the mom. You know, I picture her sitting on the porch, maybe reading a book, sipping some tea, just watching her, or maybe just watching him play.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fast. But how fast are you that you have to run now 30, 40, 50 feet as a bird is swooping down super quick? It happens in an instant, blink of an eye.
Right.
Grabs your kid and now goes to take off.
And he's gone.
No matter how quick, you'd have to be Usain Bolt to get there quick enough.
You couldn't.
And even then, that's reacting, standing up, and then sprinting.
Right. Well, it kind of reminds me of that movie, The Proposal, with Sandra Bullock, where she goes out and they warn her all the time about the little dog. They had a little like white Pomeranian or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, don't take the dog out.
Yes.
She does anyway.
Yep.
And the eagle swoops down and grabs the dog.
It and she's chasing after it.
Yeah. So, and imagine if that was your kid.
Right.
Being swept away to a horrific death too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you're going to be dropped into a nest and literally picked apart, I just can't imagine much of anything worse than
the whole
that.
trip there is going to be agony too, because those claws are squeezing on you.
And then being afraid of being dropped.
Yep.
You know, you're going to be dropped to your death, or you're going to end up in a nest and be torn to shreds.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not going to be fun. Other abduction stories include that of a 42-pound 5-year-old girl named Svanhild Hansen, who in June of 1932 was carried away by a huge eagle from her parents' farm in Lika, Norway. The giant bird carried her for more than a mile, after which it dropped her unharmed onto a high mountain ledge. Can you imagine?
No,
it's terrifying. And then this last one was even worse. In 1838, a little 5-year-old girl was snatched from the slope of the Swiss Alps where she was playing. Now, this, they believe, was an eagle, though. So even though it's not a Thunderbird story, it's still just as horrific. This eagle swoops down, carries the child away to its nest, just what we were saying. And unfortunately, the little girl did not survive. And this badly mutilated body was discovered 2 months later by a shepherd. The eagle's nest, subsequently found, was said to contain several eaglets surrounding heaps of goat and sheep bones. And of course, the little girl was among them.
Yeah.
So horrifying.
Literally what we were talking about. The worst case scenario.
The worst case scenario.
Yep.
And what a horrifying death.
Yeah. So September 25th of 2001, during the evening time, a 19-year-old claimed to have seen an enormous winged creature flying over Route 119 in South Greensburg, Pennsylvania. The witness's attention was drawn to the sky by a sound that resembled, quote, flags flapping in a thunderstorm, end quote.
That's a good way to describe it.
That's perfect, yeah.
I can literally hear it.
Yeah. Now, looking up, the witness saw what appeared to be a thunderbird that had a wingspan of estimated 10 to 15 feet and a head that was about 3 feet long, which fits.
Yeah, that's pterosaur, pterodactyl, thunderbird
exactly.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Now, the South Greensburg witness said the huge black or grayish-brown bird passed overhead at about 50 to 60 feet above him. They said, quote, I wouldn't say it was flapping its wings gracefully, but almost horrifically flapping its wings very slowly, then gliding above the passing big rig trucks, end quote.
So I literally picture a pterodactyl.
Yep.
You know, they'd flap and then glide.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Now, the witness observed the creature for about 90 seconds, which...
It's a long time.
That's an eternity for something like that. Even seeing it land on the branches of a dead tree, which nearly broke under the weight of it. Now, unfortunately, no other witnesses saw the Thunderbird, and no tangible evidence could be found after the site was searched. Now, what makes this story more credible is that other sightings of the creature were reported in Pennsylvania in June and July of 2001. So on June 13th of 2001, a resident of Greensville, Pennsylvania, was startled by the great size of a grayish-black creature soaring overhead. They initially thought that it was a small airplane or ultralight aircraft. Now, this witness watched the bird for at least 20 minutes.
Yeah, now that's unbelievable.
That
is a long time.
Because to me, 90 seconds that's forever to see something. Just start, if you don't believe me, sit there, start a timer on your phone, and just sit quietly staring at one thing for 90 seconds.
Yeah.
It feels like forever. And you're talking 20 minutes? Anyway, clearly seeing its fully feathered body and estimating its wingspan to be about 15 feet and its body length at about 5 feet. This Thunderbird was also seen to perch on a tree for at least 15 minutes before taking to the air again and flying off toward the south. A neighbor of this witness claimed to have seen the creature the next day, describing it as, quote, the biggest bird I ever saw, end quote. That's credible right there.
That's credible.
There's no other way to put it.
No, and if you're watching something that long, it's not misidentification.
Mm-mm.
I mean, because you have the wherewithal to sit and stare at something for that length of time.
That's the length of a TV show.
Yeah. 35 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes of it flying and 15 minutes of it perched on a tree limb.
Yep.
You have plenty of time to see that thing.
Now, less than a month later, on July 6th of 2001, a witness in Erie County, Pennsylvania, reported a very similar sighting, according to an article in 14 Times magazine. The creature's wingspan was estimated to be 15 to 17 feet and was described as a, quote, dark gray with little or no neck and a circle of a black under its head. Its beak was very thin and long, about a foot in length, end quote. So we're talking all of these encounters giving...
Within a couple months,
giving pretty much the same description.
Right.
I mean, there's small little details, but people see things differently.
So Pennsylvania is plagued with Thunderbirds.
It's plagued with Thunderbirds,
I don't care how you slice it. The next one, January 16th of 2018, a gigantic bird was sighted in Alaska by this woman who was driving at the time. The sighting was backed up by several others in a long comment thread on a Facebook post that she had done. This woman's name was Bauer, no first given, and she recounts the sighting to the Juneau Empire paper a few days after spotting the bird, and she said it was, quote, like an eagle, but 5 times as big, end quote. She couldn't think of any other way to describe it. She spotted it around 4 o'clock in the afternoon on January 16th, and she said she was driving to the bank. She was alone in her car, quote, right before the movie theater. I looked ahead of me, and it was towards Super Bear direction, which was referencing like a grocery store in that mall. There was rain on her windshield, so she turned on her wipers to clear the view, and that's when she saw a massive jet black bird with short tail flying level with the treetops over Mendenhall Loop Road towards her. She said the bird flapped its wings, soared a little higher, and flew at a fast pace over her car about 50 feet in the air. She's quoted as saying, I looked up, and right at that point, there was a gigantic, huge black bird flying right above my truck. It was basically following the roadway along the treetops. I slowed down to try to get a better look at it. It was heading toward the glacier. The wingspan was almost as wide as the road. It was the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. It was very concerning, and I've never seen anything like that, end quote. Bauer said that the bird definitely had feathers, but she could not make out any like discernible beak or anything on it. She said, quote, the body of itself had to have been 6 to 8 feet. I know it sounds nuts. I've been getting a lot of crap on Facebook about it like I'm crazy, but I wanted to post it in case anyone else had seen it, end quote. Well, that sparked a lot of comments.
Right.
And a lot of people said they've seen it too. And so this actually made, the newspaper because there were so many witnesses coming forward saying, yeah, we've seen it and you're not crazy. Other people, of course, told her she was a nut job and whatnot. But I give kudos to the people that are willing to put stuff out there in the limelight.
Yeah.
This is what I saw. Has anybody else seen it? You're always going to have crazy people say, yep, I've seen it too, that didn't, for sensationalism, or they want their 5 seconds of fame. There's other people who are going to say, you're a nut job.
Right.
But for every person that says you're a nut job or is lying about seeing it as well, there's always that other person that's going to say, I'm right there with you, man. I've seen it too.
Yeah, and I give props to those people too for sticking up because they could stay back and go, well, people think she's a nut. I don't want people to think I'm a nut.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to say anything even though I saw this thing.
So enough people came forward that people thought she was credible.
Right.
Because other people were backing her play and saying, nope, we've seen it too. Now, in another case, another Alaskan case, the Juneau Empire wrote another story about this woman named Diane. and she had seen something quite similar. This time, it was perched or attempting to perch in a tree near her house late at night. She went out to smoke a cigarette at her Lemon Creek home and noticed that all of the birds in the area were excited. Quote, "All you heard was the whooshing sound in my tree. I went inside and grabbed a flashlight. It was so large I couldn't even get an outline of what type of a bird it was," end quote. She noticed that the following day she went out and a bunch of branches and whatnot had actually been like smashed down out of the tree. This bird was so big and heavy.
Right.
It was literally breaking the limbs out of
Which
the
is
tree.
what other people were saying, totally unrelated to this.
Totally
that saw it
unrelated
land.
and in a completely different area. This is
Right.
Alaska. The other one was in Pennsylvania. But the same exact thing
Right.
occurred. She said, quote, "That sounds crazy, but it was huge, and I don't even go camping anymore," end
Yeah.
quote. So she's afraid to go outside, be out there in the trees. And you can't blame her.
Right.
If you saw something like that, would you want to go out there and risk being picked off and dropped off in a nest to be torn to shreds?
Right.
I wouldn't.
And I like that the first gal said, I like that she compared it to the eagle, size-wise.
Yeah.
Because if you've never seen an eagle in person, because I know there are people who haven't, you might say, well, those are big birds. You probably saw that. No, an Alaskan person knows what an eagle looks like.
Right.
They're all up there, just like they're all up here.
Montana, Idaho, Washington, Alaska, the bald eagles are prevalent.
So essentially what she's saying to me is, I saw this thing, and no, it wasn't an eagle, because it was, I know what an eagle looks like, and it was five times what an eagle is.
Yeah.
So I did like that part about that.
Yeah, pretty good description.
Right.
So there's many, 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 many more stories.
Right.
We're running out of time.
Yep.
So I think we need to just pop into what could this thing be? And some sightings might actually be of known large birds. Non-native birds like the African crowned eagle and the Andean condor, maybe they escaped from captivity.
Sure.
They could, if they're in areas that they're not indigenous to, maybe they were at a zoo, they got away. That's the theory here. They believe that maybe the African crowned eagle, because it's an aggressive bird, they may have been the ones that did this so-called Thunderbird attack or swooping or accosting people. And the Andean condors possibly just being mistaken for the Thunderbird.
Right.
It's really just a condor. Well, that's one theory. I don't buy that.
Size-wise, I don't buy that.
How many escaped birds are there from zoos?
Right.
Like if you were to research Pennsylvania, Texas, North Dakota, Iowa, Missouri, all these different places where these Thunderbirds have seen, how many have put out in the paper, oh, hey, we had an escaped condor and African eagle.
If you see it, keep an eye out for it because they're endangered. We want to get it back.
And it's just, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
And so these are the people that it can't be a Thunderbird. It has to be because a condor that's nowhere near that area.
To add on to it, not to beat a dead horse, but let's say it did happen, right? It didn't happen in every situation across all these states across the country.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two, maybe.
Yeah.
But not multiple sightings, multiple states.
I guess we should research. Are condors and African eagles actually like escape artists from zoos?
They're expert escape artists. They're lockpicks. They're known to be mischievous, and they're getting out.
And then they just kind of hang out.
Yeah.
And get mistaken for Thunderbirds.
It happens all the time.
Another theory is that Thunderbirds may be modern-day Teratorns. However, that's unlikely since no flying bird bigger than the albatross or the Andean condor has ever been discovered in recent times. And the Teratorn has actually been extinct for over 10,000 years. But, who knows? Maybe they could still be alive.
Possibility.
Now, again, we can get into the biblical aspects of how long has Earth been here.
Right.
So were there dinosaurs here 66 million years ago? That's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
I don't want to get into it. I don't think the Earth's been around more than 50,000 years or so, but, science is going to, of course, say, no, it's been, for hundreds of millions of years. Of course, that's the Big Bang Theory, et cetera. I don't believe that stuff.
Right.
I'm not saying I don't believe in dinosaurs per se. I'm just saying I don't believe they were here that long ago.
Right.
So if there was a bird such as a Teratorn. Now, a Teratorn is a whole family of birds. It includes different types of big birds. So a Teratorn is not a specific species, but it's like a group of big giant birds. And if they've been extinct for 10,000 years, 500 years, who cares what it actually is, then it's probably not likely that that's what it is.
Right.
So using that as an explanation, I don't think holds a lot of water. Another is that a thunderbird could be a pterosaur, a pterodactyl, any of those particular species, but that also is not likely because according to science, which again, we're back into the same thing, they've been extinct since the Cretaceous period, 66 million years ago.
Right.
Again, I'm not going to keep kicking that horse. I don't believe that we've been here 66 million years, and I could be 100% wrong. And anybody can debate that. You can do whatever you want or believe whatever you want. But the question would be, if a bird existed 66 million years ago, does it still exist today? So you kind of almost have to rule out the pterodactyl.
Right.
Right?
Yep, pretty much.
I mean, unless, I don't know, one was hiding in a cave for 66 million years and kept its offspring. It doesn't sound reasonable to me. Some accounts may just be embellished or based on folklore rather than actual encounters with this particular cryptid. Some sightings might be hoaxes made by pranksters or just like a cryptid enthusiast that's trying to keep a legend alive. Now, that would be more likely the case in my book if you're going to try and dispel the fact that a Thunderbird exists.
Right.
Then you got to just kind of jump into the fact that they embellished the story like those cowboys did. Yeah, we shot this thing down. It was 160-foot wingspan, 92 feet long, and then we dragged it back into town, took pictures. Well, none of that happened. So they clearly embellished it.
Right.
But then they come back with the real story of, well, we actually did see it. We shot at it, but it got away, and it really only had like a 20, 30-foot wingspan. So then you got to call that into question. Are they liars, or did they embellish a story and then come back with a real one?
Or did they not even embellish it and the paper did?
Yeah.
So
there's just no way to know.
Right,
but if you were to try and come up with a possible explanation or a debunking of a Thunderbird, I would say that's the most reasonable.
Yeah.
They've been misidentified and or people embellished or just straight up lied. I saw this huge bird and they didn't really see it. Now, I'm going to dispel that right off the bat with the amount of sightings and people in different states and people that say, oh, we've seen the exact same thing. Too many people have come forward and seen this big bird. Now, the one thing that it didn't say or wasn't a possibility was like a Jersey devil or something of that nature.
Right.
So back into the demonic entity thing, could it be a Jersey devil or similar cryptid that they're spotting?
It's possible.
It's possible. Don't know. We don't have, clearly on this one, we don't have answers to any of it. I just believe that a lot of these people are credible. Some were sensationalized, but others are just flat out stating.
Yeah.
It's the biggest bird I've ever seen in my life.
And that's what I think it's, whatever it is, I don't know, but I think it's its own thing. Yeah. I don't think it's some ancient dinosaur that's still around or whatever. I think it's its own thing. What it is, I got nothing.
Yeah, when you get into the theory of dinosaurs and modern day dinosaurs and things of that nature, when it comes to the ocean, I can believe it. Like a plesiosaur.
Right.
Or the megalodon. Or any number, Leviathan in the Bible. Any number of massive aquatic creatures. The ocean is so vast.
Yeah.
And we haven't explored all of it. And I know people say, yes, we have. We've been to the Mariana Trench. We've been to the lowest point. We've been everywhere. But it doesn't mean that you were in the right spot at the right time.
Right.
So if you're out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and you can make it all the way to the bottom in your little manned sub that's probably being crushed by the weight of the forces around you, just because you're there doesn't mean that some prehistoric type creature isn't 3,000 miles away.
I mean, look at
in the ocean.
Look at above the water. A good, legit, experienced hunter can go out a weekend and be like, I got skunked. I didn't see anything out there.
Saw nothing.
Spot that he knows that deer or elk or whatever he's hunting is because he's seen it there before.
Right.
He's tracking. He's doing his thing.
And it doesn't mean it's
spot
there
and
now.
stock. Yeah, it just not there that weekend.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's not going to be there next weekend or the next day or when you set up camp that night. It doesn't mean that they didn't walk through in the night and keep going. You don't see them again.
Right. There's just too many.
And now you take the ocean.
Too many
way bigger than the woods of Montana.
Right. And it's not populated.
Right.
So land mass is populated. Well, there's 8 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
You know, land mass is populated by a lot of people. There's still a lot of, I don't know if there's undiscovered areas, but I'm sure there's areas that just haven't really been researched all that heavily. But I'd be surprised if we came across a T-Rex somewhere that, we hadn't seen before, but all of a sudden he cropped up. I would have a hard time believing that. The ocean is a whole nother ballgame.
Exactly.
And the skies, though, I don't know. You think there's a pterodactyl flying around out there in all these different states that is being spotted by everybody, but we don't know about? That's a tough call for me.
It's hard to say because you've seen a UFO, but I haven't, and that was in the sky.
Yeah. The sky is a vast, never-ending
and maybe when I'm looking at the sky, the bird's just not there at that time.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say.
Okay, so I'm going to have to say, I'll just go on record as saying the Thunderbird has to be out there.
Has to be out there.
Now, whether it is just a Native American spirit that's protecting the upper world and fighting against the underworld enemies, or it's a cryptid, or it's a species that we haven't yet identified, too many people have seen it.
Right.
And so, as we do with most of our podcasts, I got to believe it's out there.
Oh, you guys think everything's out there.
Well, of course we do. We wouldn't have a podcast.
Exactly.
So let's get into evidence.
Yep.
Thunderbird has been sighted on numerous occasions. No credible photograph or video has ever been produced, and no specimen has ever been killed or captured.
Which means nothing.
Which literally means nothing. So that would mean that probably thousands of species of aquatic things that wash up on shore every now and then that we're like, oh, look at this, you know, that we never knew existed. The same thing could be true here.
Right.
We just don't know that it exists. Yeah. And so there is no evidence of it until there is.
Right.
So I'm not going to rule that out when they say, oh, no, there's literally no evidence of one. Well, there is. There's eyewitness accounts of this thing flying around.
Yeah.
That's evidence. Might not be tangible. You can't hold it in your hand, but
I don't have pictures that Napoleon existed, but there's eyewitness evidence that he did.
Yeah. There's historical value to things and people's testimony, and we listen to it. The whole Bible is based on witness testimony.
Right.
So you either believe it or you don't. And in this particular case, witnesses testify to the fact that this bird exists. So you either believe it or you don't. That's the way I got to look at it. And I believe it.
Right.
Now, archaeologically speaking, they have found sites containing depictions of Thunderbirds that date back like 4,000 years.
Right.
We've talked about hieroglyphics and petroglyphics before of Bigfoot, UFOs, giants.
Giants, yeah.
Crossbreeds between animals and people. Somebody with a cat face holding a spear and walking on 2 legs. Depictions of Nephilims and different things. And so were those people crazy too? Everybody that, lived in a cave back in the day that was etching it into the walls of stone, were they like, what, let's just do this so that 4,000 years from now, people will say, there were big birds in the sky.
It'll be the world's greatest joke.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I got to think that they saw them.
Right.
Petroglyphs of Thunderbirds were found in Twin Bluffs, Wisconsin, in a shelter that was used between the years 250 BC to 1500. Again, why would they draw pictures? Why would they etch it in stone? Is it a practical joke for generations to come? Or did they see them?
Right.
Or were they just such horrific artists that their proportions were off? that was just a sparrow flying overhead, but they're throwing spears at it.
It's like when a little kid starts to write and they go to write their name on a paper that's smaller and the first letter's huge and then the next letter's they're like, I don't have room now.
Yeah.
So then it's like microscopic by the time it gets,
right.
You never know, I guess.
You don't know. But the fact is there's been historical depictions of Thunderbirds. So they have to exist.
They have to.
Yeah. And we're sticking with
That's
it.
the end of it.
Yeah. Now, when you get into the popularity, there is none.
Nope.
There's no festivals. There's no marches. There's no no celebrations of a Thunderbird other than maybe like tribal things.
Sure.
But, we're not part of that. So it's not like hey, we're driving to Louisiana this week and going to the Thunderbird Festival. There's really nothing out there. Movie-wise, there wasn't even anything on that. There's a ton of movies that depict things like pterodactyls and big birds and whatnot, but not like specific to it, to a Thunderbird. I did find like there was a movie in 1957 called The Giant Claw. It was about this massive bird, but it was not specifically a Thunderbird, nor was it supposed to be literally related to a Thunderbird. It's just like similar. It was a giant bird, that tortures the world. But they didn't call it a Thunderbird, and there's no link to it. I did see in 2021, there was a movie that came out called Thunderbird, and I tried to watch like clips from it, trailers and whatnot. And I think there was reference to a Thunderbird, but it's a story of like this guy, he's out on a boat and whatnot. And I don't know, the long and the short of it is like 30 women went missing, and he was trying to investigate, the disappearance of all these people, but he kept having visions of a Thunderbird. So he contacts like Native American people, and they're telling him, you shouldn't be involved with these things.
Yeah.
So, but that's all I could really get from it because apparently the movie was a flop. I didn't watch the movie, but I think that it's about Thunderbirds.
Right.
Could be totally mistaken.
Yeah,
but,
they could have just
there was one
cool
like
name.
scene or something where he had a vision of this massive bird, that was standing in front of him. So I think somehow, some way it depicts a Thunderbird, but I don't know. That's really what the plot of the movie is.
Yeah. Come to find out the end of the movie is probably something like the killer has a tattoo of a bird on his back. Something like that. Yeah.
Something weird. But anyway, that's really all there was to Thunderbird. There's just nothing out there on Thunderbirds other than a million YouTube videos, podcasts, different things where people are just trying to do basic documentary work.
Right.
To come up with what it possibly could have been and the lore behind it, just like we're doing right now.
Exactly.
So there's really not much out there to look at. I think that's all we got on Thunderbirds. It's a lot of testimonial evidence that it exists. Too much to go into on origin, too many different concepts and ideas behind it. But I think that we tried to summarize it the best that we could.
Right.
And we'll just leave it at that. Do you have anything else that you've seen on it?
I think that covers it pretty much. I think the sightings are, for me personally, what I enjoy the most.
And I think they have to speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Not everybody's nuts.
Right.
So I'm kind of looking forward to our next episode.
Yeah, it's going to be good and creepy.
And now most people are not even going to know about this one.
But we didn't know about it.
Yeah, exactly. Until you start doing a little bit of research on it. And it's a kind of like our 3-legged lady episode where it's just a terrifying concept of what's going on. And we're going to talk about 2 different female evil spirits. And they come from the Japanese culture. And one is called the Kuchisaki Onna.
Yep.
And the other is Teka Teka. And when we get into this story, you guys are going to go, oh my Lord, how did they even come up with that? Well, we didn't. The Japanese did. And it's recent too. This was like from 1970.
Yeah.
And these are horrifying stories in my book.
Oh, big time.
And horrifying sights, something that you would never want to come across in your lifetime.
Visually, auditory, all horrifying. Yeah. It's going to be good. I'm excited for it.
It's going to be a fun episode. And so we're hoping that you join us in 2 weeks and hear about the Kuchisaki Onna and the Teka Teka.
Yeah.
So that's all I got.
Yeah.
And hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the show and you want to help us out, then go ahead and give us a follow, leave us a review, and don't forget to turn on the automatic download button so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And as always, if you've had any experiences, stories, thoughts, comments, or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to cryptidfanatic@gmail.com. Let us know if you'd like to be on the show or just have your story featured during one of our episodes.